place, better entrepreneurship. I'm going to wrap that up and segue into the month of October is looking at better leadership, being better leaders. And there's several things I got in mind that I'm going to be talking to our leadership base and leadership, those in leadership here at CGC to try to equip us to become and be better leaders in whatever area that God has placed us in. I'll be talking a lot of leadership talk for the month of October, getting us ready. Is designed is to getting us ready to get us ready for another year of ministry, to get us ready to fulfill responsibilities and calls and callings that going to push us out of our comfort zone in the year 2020 if the Lord delays us coming. So the theme for the month of October is making better leaders or becoming better leaders. To finish off September, looking at the career housing, the career entrepreneurship and work or business area. We've been in the book of Nehemiah. I want to go back to the book of Nehemiah and kind of walk you through a few things tonight from the Nehemiah story. Nehemiah, by the way, if anybody that's really interested in studying leadership principles and looking at how to a biblical base and biblical example of strong leadership, you should do a study of the whole book of Nehemiah. Nehemiah himself. It was interesting about Nehemiah when you look at the background. Nehemiah was born in exile, in slavery, in captivity. Remember, historically, the Babylonians had seized and taken possession of Jerusalem, and Nehemiah was a baby, was a youngster. He was born in exile. When they took him away from Jerusalem into Babylonian, he was born in what we would call slavery, in exile, in captivity, all right, in Babylon. And so what's interesting when you look at his history, when he was born to parents who was taken into captivity, and which means he never knew what it was like to live as a free man. Nehemiah didn't know what it was like to live as a free man until he came back to Jerusalem. Really, almost some 70 years after the establishing of the temple. Nehemiah was a man who had been deeply affected because he was born in Babylonian. His parents were taken slave or captive out of Jerusalem, displaced, and moved to Babylon. And Nehemiah then was born in the midst of what we would call slavery or captivity or Babylonian exile, exiled from Jerusalem. And though he was born then, the story again in Nehemiah chapter 1, when you read it, is that he got word that the city that his parents were of, which he never really lived in as a free man. He was a youngster, a toddler, a child. But it's interesting that his attachment to that city of Jerusalem, even though he was born, taken away from there when he was young, into Babylon, he still had a burden, a yearning, a zeal, a passion, a desire, a want for the city that city of his birth, probably you all, but not the city of his freedom, because he was exiled out of that city. So to look at him and see him emerge as a leader is very interesting, because when you're opening the book of Nehemiah chapter 1 and chapter 2, you read him. Nehemiah wore three different hats, or three different major hats or major promotions, three different advancements. The first was when you open the book of Nehemiah, he is a cupbearer. You remember I talked about a cupbearer? What did a cupbearer do? A cupbearer tasted the food and the wine and the drink of the king to make sure it was not poisoned or toxic, and it was a most trusted position. So here is a boy that was exiled, taken away from his homeland with his parents and taken to a foreign land, and somehow we don't know and have any information about what happens between his childhood being taken from Jerusalem and his first introduction in Nehemiah chapter 1 as a cupbearer. Something happened between childhood and adulthood. And this is interesting. Just look at that for a minute. Think about that. All the excuses that sometimes we make and we hear. Here's a man that was born in slavery, taken away from his hometown, exile. We talk about the president today, the thing talk immigrants and immigration and persons coming from across the border. Nehemiah was forced across the border. Like our foreparents was put in slave ships and brought across the great river to come into a land and country they knew nothing about. And though he landed in Babylon as an exile, as a foreigner, as an immigrant, if you want to use that term, we see his first adult responsibility, or we see him in the king's palace as a cupbearer. He's in a trusted position with the king Artaxerxes. How did he get there? We don't know. But it's interesting, and couple points there. Life is not so much where you start at, as much as it is where you end up. And there are many courses, there are many roads to success. There are many roads that can get you to where you get, even with setbacks, even with displacements, even with being exiled, even with being held back and not given opportunity. We see an example in this man, Nehemiah, who was no extraordinary person. He was nothing that was beyond our humanity, nothing. He was no supernatural person, but we see him as a survivor and as a leader. So, brothers and sisters, again, in this area of being better life, better career, better employment, better entrepreneurship, leading to better leadership, you can pick yourself up. And God works also. God is working in events and circumstances to make things happen and to bring things to pass. So we see him, first of all, as a cupbearer. The second position, and this is important, after he becomes a cupbearer, when you read the book of Nehemiah, I started studying it the last couple of weeks. When you get into chapter number 2 through chapter number 6, he's going to now take off his bougie hat of being a cupbearer and put on a hard hat of being a building and a construction and a rebuilder of a wall. He's going to become a general manager, a chief steward. He's going to become a supervisor of a wall building project. He's going to roll up his sleeves and start getting his hand dirty. He leaves the palace, you all, and goes into the field in a foreign land, because he leaves from Babylon, goes back to Jerusalem for one purpose: to rebuild the walls. So he becomes a foreman, an excavator, a construction guy, a builder and a worker. And that's interesting to think about him transitioning. Here's a young boy that was born in exile, never tasted freedom as an adult. His parents were moved to Babylon. He goes to Babylon, hears about the ruining of his hometown, and he goes back to his hometown, Jerusalem, and he leaves the position of a cupbearer to go become a construction worker. Did y'all get that? He leaves the building. There's some things, you all, now in the eyes of, can you imagine the eyes of most people, they would say, man, you done made it to the C-suite. You done made it to the executive role. You made it to big time. You're on, and you're going to leave from the palace and go down and work construction on a wall? But there's some causes and purposes and some passions. Again, in Nehemiah chapter 1, if you read it, you'll read that Nehemiah was burdened for what was going on in Jerusalem. Now, every demotion doesn't make sense, and what may appear to be a step backwards or a step down, you all, may not all time make sense. But he stepped down so he could step up. Now, I don't really believe and think in Nehemiah's mind He felt that he was giving up something significant. He's walking around, you all, in the midst of the king as a cupbearer, and when you read it, his countenance is sad. He's got a sad face. He has no joy. He has no, the zeal and zest of life has been sapped out of him. And the king Artaxerxes asked Nehemiah, what's wrong with you? Why are you walking around here drooping and walking around here such sad countenance? You know, why are you, now, and what's interesting, Nehemiah, when he heard about the ruins of Jerusalem, the Bible said he wept and he prayed. He wept, he fasted, and he prayed. He was burdened, but it's some months that go by. We don't know the exact length of time, but certainly less than perhaps a year, maybe 4 to 8 months or so went by before he is given opportunity to go to Jerusalem. He's heard about the destruction. He's moved and passionate and burdened. He prays and cries and fasts, and then after praying and fasting, you all know what we like to believe, what we like to think is that once you pray and fast, and then we like to write the story and say, and then God showed up. But that ain't true with Nehemiah. When you read the first chapter and then chapter 2, matter of fact, in Nehemiah chapter 1, verse 1, real quick, the words of Nehemiah, the son of Hakaliah, and it came to pass in the month Chislew, in the month, Hebrew month, by the name of Chislew, in the 20th year, as I was in Shushan, the palace. Shushan was the palace of the Babylonians, okay? In the month Chislew, okay? That's interesting because it's dating, that's the 9th month of the Hebrew calendar. We would call it, in our Roman calendar system, we would say that Chislew was the month of December. Okay, so Chislew in the 20th year that the king had been on the throne, or he had been reigning in year 20, all right, and in December, or the Hebrew word Chislew in that month, is when Nehemiah got word. Now go to chapter 2. Chapter 2, verse number 1, he got word. In chapter 2, verse 1, and it came to pass in the month Nisan, in the 20th year of Artaxerxes, of the king. Now, it's the same year 20th of King Artaxerxes' reign, but it was Chislew month when he heard word, which was the month of December. All right? And now, in the month, chapter 2 says, when the month of Nisan, the Hebrew word, month of Nisan comes around, all right, now he's going to start taking action. Now this is kind of like the month of April. The month of Nisan is the month of April. He heard in December some ruins was going on. The city was in ruin. He wept, he cried, he fasted, he prayed. Now it's April or the year Tyson, the year Nisan, the month of Nisan, in the year of 20th, 4 months, or in the month of April, which is 4 months, 5 months from December, you all, right? You got December, you got January, February, March, April, 4 months from December, okay? The king say, what's going on with you? Why are you still sad? Now, had he prayed? Yes. Had he fasted? Yes. Had anything happened with the walls of Jerusalem or with the situation he's praying and fasting about? No. And so for 4 months minimum, he's prayed, he's fasted, all right, he's talked to the Lord, and he's sad of countenance, and then the king says, why are you walking around here so sad, so droopy-eyed, so with your head, bowed down and your shoulders bent? And it was then that he began to, and then he had to take some time to go get the cedar, to get letters to make the trip from, it was 800 miles from Babylon to Jerusalem. Now, there was no airplanes. There was no, you couldn't get in your Ford Escort. You couldn't get into your Chrysler minivan. You couldn't ride your SUV from Babylon to Jerusalem. All right. It was camel, horseback, or walking in sandals and wagons. 800 miles. 800 miles now is probably from here to beyond Atlanta area, somewhere probably, or Memphis, or past Memphis. Memphis 700 some miles. So from here to Memphis is 700. So what's beyond Memphis, on the other side of Memphis? 756. So let's say from here to Memphis is 800 miles. It's 756 miles, 800 miles. That's how far Babylon was from Jerusalem. And remember now, if we got in our car and drove, that's at least a 12, 13, 12-hour drive if you don't stop. Right? That's 12 hours. Now, we're going 70 miles an hour, 65, 70 miles an hour to get there, or thereabouts if you're driving, okay. Horse and buggy and wagon with wood on the back of the wagon. I'm just imagining. It's not less than 30 days. What y'all think? At least not less than 30 days, and maybe it could be a few months. Remember, it's the month of December, Chishu, to the month of April. And he leaves in April, so he's got better weather, we can assume. Okay, so he's got a trip. From December, say it take 2 or 3 months. Say it's April, May, June. Say it's May, June before he arrives. Okay, so from December to June is like 6 months, 6 or 7 months. Okay, so for 6 months he's been praying, fasting, and crying, and nothing changed. In the sense that there's progress because the king releases him, but the walls are still in ruins. Change sometimes it takes a long time. Sometimes we're carrying a burden and we're crying to the Lord and we're asking God, and we want God to do something for us immediately. But Nehemiah took the long-term route. And then when he gets there, if you read in chapter number 3, when Nehemiah gets there, it's in chapter 2, verse number 12. When he got there, and the Bible says it in verse number 14, it was verse number 11, that so I came to Jerusalem and he was there 3 days. Once he arrived, whenever he arrived, he was there 3 days. Probably had to rest and recuperate from a 2-month trip. But he was there 3 days. And after being there 3 days, he goes out at night and surveys the ruins. He goes out at night and surveys the ruins and starts looking at some things. All right. Again, nothing has happened, nothing's changed. And you know what? Sometimes in our praying, we're asking God to do some things for us. And oftentimes, God is changing us with our prayers and preparing us to be able to do what we've been praying, asking him to do. God fixed the ruins. God rebuild the walls. God, why you let your people the walls lay waste? They exposed. The enemy is there. And what God was doing with Nehemiah, you're going to be the one. You're a cupbearer. It's easy to pray a safe prayer while you're in the palace cupbearing and got all the accolades of the king. But you got to trade in your black tie suit for a hard hat. And that's what most of us don't want to do. We want to say, God, let me stay in my room, in my comfort, in my secret closet, in my church, in my office, and I pray. But send them down there and let them do something. God, send help. They need you down there. God, and God have you. Sometimes you don't answer us because he wants us to keep praying long enough until our prayers change us. Until we get the burden and the passion that Nehemiah, I told you on Sunday, Nehemiah, the change of the rebuild of the walls, really didn't start with a hammer and a nail after he got there. It started in prayer when he was 800 miles away. It started with the burden of him wanting to do something about the situation. Your change and your promotion and your acceleration and your increase is going to start with you getting something in your belly, a passion, a commitment, and a desire and a want to in your belly, and saying, I think I can do this. It changes. Prayer is designed to change us, as well as it changes situations. But God changes situations, but God changes us too in prayer. See, we got this one-dimensional thought. I keep telling, we think prayer is a vending machine. I put in my request and it kicks out my answer. And God said, no, some praying is going to involve you. It's not a vending machine as much as it's an x-ray machine to look at your insides and make you look at yourself and say, God, what can I do about this? God, strengthened me to address the issue. Give me what I need. Give me letters from the king. Give me a will to go and rebuild. And he went there and he organized. He went there and he talked to the men, did a survey, and then he went to work. But no, I want you to notice though, he starts as an exile, as a child who was taken from his homeland, his parents, out of Jerusalem to Babylon. Somehow he rises to the point of being a cupbearer. Then he leaves the high esteemed position of a cupbearer and trades that in for some coveralls and says, I'm going to now go and do construction work and work on a wall. See, a lot of us are not willing to make those risks, take those risks. And we think once we made it, we made it. And you know what else was interesting? You know what's when you really look at this, and I hope you all can get this, and I said it before, we know the most dangerous place is not the most, let me say, the most challenging assignment is not necessarily for you to make it out of your struggles and for you to endure your hardship and for you to somehow gain victory out of all your distresses. That's not your most challenging assignment. Your most challenging assignment is going to come when you succeed. And can you stand prosperity? And can you stay in the success lane? Can you handle the promotion? And that's why a lot of times people don't, we've heard stories, and we can tell stories. I work with people, you know, people that somehow a management level or supervisor boss come to them and say, Brother Ed, I see some potential in you. You're not using all your potential. I want to make you a supervisor. No. I don't want that headache. I don't feel like dealing with no people. I don't want the headache, you know, because because most people can't stand promotion. We've developed coping skills. We can make it. We can play in on a low level. We know how to be ground soldiers and grassroots, and how to deal in the low level, and how to occupy, survive, how to thrive even with mediocrity when we're on this base. A lot of us are afraid of that promotional level. I was in, I'm gonna confess something to you. I was in elementary school. I was a pretty smart student as a young boy in class, and I really was. Went to a black school, George Washington Carver. Teachers took a lot of interest in me and worked with me, and third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh grade, sixth grade, etc. So George Washington Carver was in Rollo Township, but it was a part of the Oak Park School District. And so it was all black, 99% Rollo Township, Ferndale. Okay, we said Ferndale to try to give us a better zip code to sound better, but it was the township. It was projects. That's really what it was. Okay. And when you wanted to get sophisticated, they asked you where you were from. You said Ferndale, but we wasn't from Ferndale. We were from the township. But anyway, from projects. So we had green projects. We had army barracks. We had wooden projects. We had all kind of projects. And so anyway. But I really was a pretty good student. And so I remember in the fifth grade or so, I don't even know what it was called, what happened, but school district do different things. They started an accelerated program or for students and wanted to put you in these accelerated classes, or they call them honors classes now. It wasn't called honors classes then, but that was the equivalent. But what that meant was one day a week, I would leave from Rollo Township, George Washington Carver School, and they would take a bus, and I would transport me. We went to, I think it was Clinton Elementary School, but whatever, because I was in an accelerated, like a double promoted higher. And I'll never forget, boy, the first day I went there, it was a cultural shock. You got a poor boy out of a totally black neighborhood that was doing what it never was exposed to really anybody white per se. And then you take them and you move them from that 4 days, 5 days, and you put them in at all white, white and Jewish. Oak Park was very, very Jewish environment, which had some very smart. Most of them, I'll be going to my high school reunion this month, and the majority of them are doctors, lawyers, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I went to school with many of them in elementary, junior high, and high school, and well, not elementary, but junior high and high school. And but anyway, and so I never forget. I developed the biggest stomach ache. And I was in a foreign land. I was in a strange area. I was, nothing had diminished my intelligence, but I was taken out of a comfort zone, and I was put in a unfamiliar territory as a fifth grade. How old are you in fifth grade? 10-year-old, 11-year-old, whatever. And it was the worst thing and feeling I ever had. I mean, I had nobody to talk to relate to. I mean, they didn't look like me. They didn't act like me. I didn't know what they talked different than I did. Everything was different. And so then eventually that happened. Every week they did that. Eventually, I somehow, some way got acclimated. David Tucker, Jewish friend of mine, my first Jewish friend by the name of David Tucker, somehow befriended me in that class. But then somehow, some way, I ended up over his house. And the first time in my life, I ate bagels and lox. And I actually, when he took me over there, his mother served bagels. I actually thought it was pizza without meat. Y'all laughing at me. I'm just showing you. I'm just confessing how green I was, you all. I ain't never seen no bagels. This the hard bread. But I kept asking, saying, well, where's the sauce and where's the? And then they brought out the Philadelphia cream cheese. But I ain't never know that. You got to spread some of this on there. And that's how I made it kind of started to, get some kind of adaptability. But I guess I'm saying that to say we don't really know how to make it on those upper levels. So what we do, we sometimes, you sabotage your advancement. You sabotage your progress. You sabotage your even your destiny sometimes by doing things to keep yourself down here where you're comfortable with, rather than trying to face new challenges and face new terrains and go to the next level. So Nehemiah, he's a construction worker. He's going to work on the wall from chapter 2 to chapter 6. Chapter 6, they rebuild the wall, etc. But then, what's interesting, and this is what I'm getting to. After chapter, you think that his promotion was finished. He finished the wall. They worked on it. He had opposition. He persevered. They built the wall. In the chapter 6, you see that the wall was completed. It was completed in 52 days. Nehemiah chapter 6, verse number 15. Nehemiah 6 and 15. So the wall was finished in the 25th day of the month of Elul. In 52 days. In 52. Elul is the month of September. Remember that Nisan was the month of April. They left. And then he surveyed it, took him time. But they finished it in September in 52 days. Let's back up. If they finished it in September, it's 52 days. 52 days backwards from September, you got August, you got July. They must have started in July something, right? Early July. They finished it in September, and they did it in 52 days. So they must have started building the wall somewhere in July. Now remember, he left Babylon in April. So we were just about right from April, May, June, July. That's 3 months. So it probably took it was probably 2 months travel. And then he got there and did some surveying. We don't know. He waited 3 days before he started surveying, and And we don't know at what point they started. So he probably took every bit of more than 2 months to get from Babylon to to Jerusalem and did whatever else he did. But now he got word in December, and he finished the wall in September. That's 9, 10 months after he first got word of the room, which is pretty fast, because here's the backdrop. Here's what you compare it to. The wall had been laying in ruins for 90 years. Y'all got that? It been laying in, nothing had happened for 90 years. God awakens Nehemiah, and he takes 9 months from December to September, 9, 10 months. But the actual hands-on work only took 52 days. Less than 2 months. It took God 9 months, 10 months to inform Nehemiah, prepare Nehemiah, equip Nehemiah, deal with the opposition, change from a cupbearer to a construction worker, and the reward was, once he started the work, in 52 days it got done. Something that hadn't been done in 90 years. Isn't that interesting? See, we got to walk through this type of scripture and walk through, because it should tell us something about how God works with us. Why we think we're supposed to pray and God's supposed to immediately give us everything in one prayer. In one. Now he can. There are instances in the Bible we could read where it said, and immediately. But for the most part, God's going to walk you through some steps and processes. 9 months from the time he got to the time he finished, and 52 days of actual work, that means there was some planning, there was some dealing with opposition, there was some struggle, there was some preparation, there was some prayer, there was some heartache, there was some headache, there was some perseverance, there was some sleepless nights and struggle and all of that other thing that happened, and eventually, but it was in 9 months, 30 days in a month, almost 33 times 9 is 270, 270, 300 to 275 or 270 something days, all right, of activity, and to accomplish 52 days of work. In process of time. If God told us, don't worry, everything will be all right, in 270 days, you ain't going to have no worries, Nehemiah. You're going to finish it. He wouldn't have gone through the crucible of the struggle, of the changes, of the challenge. Nehemiah was better after 270 days than he was, from when he first started, and we're going to see another promotion he gets. So for us, you got to understand, time don't mean nothing to God. Time means something to us. But God is not limited by our times. We think, it's been 30 days. God said he was going to do it, and I still got this situation. I'm still praying 30 days later, 3 hours later, 3 weeks later, and God's saying, that ain't nothing. I got you. I told you I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. But you got to be, God wants us. Why does he do it? I believe there's something, the value of whatever the process is and whatever we're supposed to get out of it, dependency upon God, learning that God was going to do it, patience and waiting on God, a spirit of perseverance, a determination to press over obstacles, a willingness to try it again, get up when we've knocked down and try to remotivate ourselves. All those lessons that we're going to need for the next trial. We so focused on what we're going through now. We don't understand that God there's some greater trials coming. There's a scripture that says, if you weary with footmen, how can you run with horses? Anybody ever read that scripture before? It's a scripture that says, if running with footmen, with racing with people, with men, you can't handle that. You can't keep up pace with a human foot race, in a sprint, or with runners. How you gonna run with horses? If you're growing weary with footmen, if you can't trust God for a cold, how you going to be able to trust him for something big? If you can't let God handle your little situations and learn that he takes care of the details and the little things, how you going to trust him for something bigger? If you weary and faint and grow with dealing with footmen, human beings, you ain't ready to run against no horses. Now, the wall was built in 52 days. Here's the third level, a third promotion for Nehemiah, because we're talking about still wrapping up the careers, the promotions, advancement, entrepreneurship. Now, beginning with after chapter 6, he gets promoted, you all, and becomes governor. Governor Nehemiah. Yeah, Governor Nehemiah. He's no longer, the cupbearer. Or first of all, let's go back. Remember, he was a child in exile that was taken out of exile, out of slavery, and abandoned and put into slavery. He's not that child. He conquered whatever he needed to conquer from being displaced out of his homeland, becoming an immigrant, taken to a foreign land, and still made it to the cupbearer. He leaves the cupbearer promotion, the high seat, the palace, and goes and puts on coveralls and a cover hat and becomes a builder of walls and a supervisor and a motivator of people. When he completes that job in 52 days, he now becomes governor. He becomes the governor. All right, the people elect him or appoint him and get him, and he now becomes governor, all right, of the entire nation of Judah. He's not, his last promotion is he's promoted to be governor. Now that's interesting. Isn't that interesting? That he becomes governor. Now, another promotion. Do you think that when Nehemiah got word that the wall in Jerusalem was laid waste and was destroyed and the gates were down, do you think when he got that word in that month of Chislev, whatever, in December, do you think his thought was, if I do this, I'm going to be governor? I don't believe that entered into his mind. Matter of fact, let's look at it this way. Do you think when he gave up cupbearer and said, I got to leave the key, asked the king, I got to go back home and help my people. Do you think when he said, I'm going back home to help my people, he was going back home to be governor? He wasn't focused on the promotion. He was focused on the problem. He had a passion and a burden. He cried and he wept and fasted because his heart was broken because of the conditions of the people. And in attacking and addressing that problem, it led to success. I don't even know if Nehemiah left thinking, I'm going to be successful. He may have left thinking, I want to rebuild the walls. And he probably left thinking, I'm going to make this happen, make this work. But that wasn't his definition of success. Probably would have been, if I can just get the walls built. That was probably how he would have defined success. But God had something else in store for him. And the people saw his work in 52 days. This man that came, we've been like this for 90 years. He done came back home and he done motivated us, and he dealt with Sanballat, Tobiah, and Geshem, the opposers, and he got it done in 52 days. Now they singing his praises. We gonna vote for you. We want you to be governor. It ain't what he was seeking. It was the reward for the work. Y'all missed that one. It was the reward. Now, some folks could have been hating on him. Who's that nearby? You think he's something? Why he governor? But you don't remember, the man was an exiled teenager. He never was a free adult, a free man in Jerusalem until this happened. All right, so you can't hate on him. and he thinks he's somebody when all that he's gone through, and he went from just to go from being a baby taken out of Jerusalem to Babylon in exile and being a cupbearer. That was a big promotion, a big step. But he gave it up. He gave it up. He didn't give it up for a greater advancement. He didn't give it up cupbearer to be king. He didn't give up cupbearer to be governor. He gave up cupbearer to go work. But God is not unrighteous that he would forget your works and your labor, in that you have ministered and do minister to the saints. You take care of God's business, God will take care of your business. It ain't even got to be your desire. Eyes haven't seen, ears haven't heard. It ain't even entered into the hearts. It haven't entered into the hearts of man. The good things God has in store for you. God got some better things in store for you than what you think you're even worthy of. If you are faithful to doing what he wants to be done, what he wants to get done. So Nehemiah went through all of that, and Nehemiah, he made it. About 4 things I want to talk about, and I'm finishing. Yeah. God is not, it's Hebrews. God is not unright. Hebrews 9, I think maybe. But is it 9 or 6? Or 9 and 6 or 9? Hebrews 6. God is not unrighteous that he should forget, all right, your works and your labor of love, in that you have ministered and do minister. Is that Hebrews 9? Y'all, anybody look that up? Unto the saints. Let me see. I'm not going to get it. I want y'all to get it. 6 and 10. Hebrews 6. Hebrews 6 and 10. Hebrews chapter 6 and 10. For God is not unrighteous to forget your work and labor of love. He's not unrighteous. God ain't unrighteous. He's not unfair. He's not going to leave you hanging. He's not going to forget about you. And he ain't going to forget your work and your labor. And what's interesting about that? And I don't want to dwell here too long. Your work, what is your work? Your work is the stuff you do. Work is action. Work can be seen. Your work product is always demonstrated. It's always, here, look, y'all, this is what I did. I swept the floor. This is what I did. I painted the wall. Look what I did. I washed the dishes. You can see your work. I produced something. I did something. Your work is the end product of your efforts, of what you set out to do, right? But there's sometimes that you can set out to do something and have very good intentions, and for whatever reason, you don't meet your goal. I want to sweep the floor and I ain't got no broom, or just say whatever. I had a desire to do something, and what I thought I was going to do, it didn't turn out right. I didn't finish the task. So what God won't forget, he won't forget your work, but he also won't forget your labor. Y'all missing that. You can put a lot of effort in something and it not come to fruition. You can labor about a thing and it never come to pass. Now your work is that gets complete. But your labor, you can have the best intentions, the ability and everything, and you can and because of circumstances beyond your control, you can exert a whole lot of effort and spend a lot of energy, spend some money, spend some time, and ain't got nothing to show for it. And God won't forget that. He won't forget the effort, the labor, not only your work product, but he won't forget what went into you wanting to do the right thing and just falling short. And that you have ministered and do minister, what you showed toward his name, and that you have ministered and do minister to the saints. In terms of promotion, I'm finishing this because I'll move on into the month of October. We're going to deal with leaders, being better leaders. There are 4 major areas, you all, in terms of promotions that you're going to always be tested in when you want to consider or think about your next level. Think about your next assignment. Think about moving up the ladder. Everybody want to move up the ladder. Think about taking a promotion. Think about advancing. Even in ministry, even in assignment, even in the church, if you're asked to take something to do, take on a greater world, greater task. 4 areas you're going to be challenged in. First area you're going to be challenged in is that promotion brings privileges. Promotion gives you privileges. It gives you the ability now that you are the leader for the first time or for whatever. Now you're in charge. Now you have control. You have say so now. And a whole lot of folk flunk this first base, because a lot of people don't know how to handle privilege. You meet people on the job. Me and you started at the same time, and long as we on the same level, he's all right. But when Bob got promoted, he think he's something now. No, he don't think he's something. The job gave him some privileges that you didn't get, because his promotion meant that he was going to be asked to do some things. He got a higher pay. He got more responsibility. He got extra keys to some doors to unlock. He got a budget to handle. He got a car to drive. He got something. He got some tools to work. He got something else to do. He got some privileges. And then, can you handle those privileges? Because if you drop the ball and bump your head, say everybody can't handle privilege. This is what promotion. Okay, if promotion gonna give you some privileges. Not you promoted, that means you tell them what to do. Can you handle telling them what to do? You promoted, you're going to have to stay longer. Come in early and stay late. Because you ain't going to get no work done while they there, because your job is to manage them. So if you got any chance of getting any work done, you got to do it when they ain't there, before they get there or after they leave. That's what promotion means. That's what promotion privileges. Can you handle the test of privileges? Nehemiah 5:14, I don't have time to go into, but he was able to handle privilege. Nehemiah said, we didn't even eat the governor's food allowance, for 12 years. Nehemiah chapter 5, verse 14, just real quick. He was promoted, and then he didn't even take advantage of everything that he could have. In Nehemiah chapter 5, verse number 14, moreover, from the time that I was appointed to be their governor in the land of Judah, from the 20th year even until the 22nd year, 32nd year of Artaxerxes king, that's 12 years, from year 20 to year 32, I and my brethren have not eaten what? The bread of the governor. He is the governor. And he didn't take advantage of every privilege. Did y'all get that? There was bread that only the governor could eat, and he, for 12 years, he didn't partake of what he could have. Number 2, the second challenge you're going to have to deal with is when you get promotion. Is going to be policies. You got privileges to deal with. You got some policies, some rules. You got some expectations. You're going to have to now conform to. You got to discipline them when they do wrong. The policy is this got to happen, that got to happen. You got to adjust to, can you deal with the new policies, the new expectation, the new rules? Leadership at CGC, no. I tell them that distinguishes you from leaders to followers. I'm coming to you, if you're the leader, to ask what happened in your area of responsibility. You can stay a follower and hide. But if you're a leader, the buck's going to stop with you. You got to deal with that. Can you deal with that policy? Can you deal with that? A whole lot of things that happens there. Third area, as quickly as I'm rushing through this, in terms of you got to deal with for promotions, the next challenge, third area challenge, is you're going to be given some projects. First one was privileges. Second was policy. Third one, absolutely. If you get an assignment, if you get a promotion, if you get an advancement, if you get a task or assignment, you're going to be tasked with some projects or a project. Can you handle the project? Can you build the wall? And how many days can you on building it? Because that's the project. The project is, and opposition is coming. Don't think you're going, because you're the leader, you're going to, matter of fact, get all the opposition. You're going to get shot at first because you're out front. Only way for you not to get shot at is you go back in the back and hide yourself in the back somewhere. But if you're the leader, it's you got to be first partaker of the fruit, the husbandman. First part. So projects. Can you handle the projects? Can you handle can you juggle the ball? Can you multitask? Can you get the work done? A whole lot of folks want fame and popularity and notice and want to be seen in up front. Can you deliver on the projects? If you can't deliver on the projects, you might as well just stay in obscurity. Because you're going to have to be held accountable. Last thing is people. And that's probably the hardest. I'm saying last, but probably the first. When you get promoted, when you get advancement, when you increase, whatever, you're going to have to deal with people in many ways. People that you may not before had to do. You can look at certain persons and say, coworkers that ain't no good, that they slowful, they come in late, leave early, they cheat on the lunch, they punch somebody else's time card, they don't do the job, they scam on a job. As long as you co-working with them, that ain't really ain't your responsibility. You should say something, but you ain't really got to. But you become their boss. And you know what you know about Bob and Sue and Sally. You got some people issues to deal with. You got some decisions, and people is the biggest part of your biggest responsibility of your task anyway. Your projects, some people the projects, they can get them done if you just leave them alone, let them crunch away. But with all the distractions and dealing with people, it's the people issues and the headaches of people. And watching over and managing, you can't hardly manage yourself. You got to keep up with 40 folk now and see if they on time, when they taking sick leave, when they doing, are they doing their job? You got to manage them and motivate them and encourage them and push them and and to do something. So you got people now. I asked all the auxiliary leaders. I met with them. We got a furnace project going on, and I told them I've already gone to the people with the kitchen. Now I'm coming to the leaders. And y'all go to that's what I told them, Mother Simmons. I told her, I done been to them as their pastor. I'm coming to you now as the leaders. Now you go to them. Y'all sat back and watched me from the month of Chizu to the month of Nisan. Asking, begging, prompting, pleading, praying, influencing, And now it's on the auxiliary leaders to go get it. go get it and bring it back. That's people. Amen. All right, so I'm closing. Those are the promotions. Those are things to deal with, how to handle. Again, I tell you, it's not whether or not you can survive in difficulty, whether or not you can survive, in obscurity or in mediocrity. You can do that. You've proven you can do that. Can you stand the altitude of success? Can you stand the promotion? Can you thrive when promotion comes? I know persons in many careers, sometimes they got promoted even to supervise, more pay, lease car, this, that, and other. And after a year, they went back and said, demote me, take me back to where I was. I ain't dealing with these folk. It ain't what you think it is. When you under the radar and just you just got yourself to answer to and be responsible for. As soon as you move up, you got to answer to all these crazy, weird people, and you don't know what's making them tick. And they do some stuff that you just say, I don't know what in the world, and your boss look at you and say, you getting paid the big bucks, go fix it. And under your responsibility, your line, go on and find out what he's doing. Go handle it. Amen. Blessings upon each one of you. Thank you so much. I'm going to stop. Yes. Yes. Human being runners, footmen, human joggers, human track stars, people who run with feet on their feet, racers. It's yes, isn't it? How can you? I can get it. If you weary with footmen, if you weary with footmen, how can you run with horses? Anybody get that scripture? Anybody look that scripture up? If you weary with footmen, how can you run with horses? Huh? she said she'll find it, and I'll find it. Let's prepare with our offering, and